Welcome on to the next edition of the Faster Beyond 50 podcast. It is the start of a brand new year, and today we are going to be talking about a whole bunch of things. One in particular is salt tablets, and are they important when it comes to cramping? Lindsey, you are going to laugh because you're going to think I submitted one of the questions to it. It's about strength training. We're going to talk about taking forever to warm up, about not bouncing back that well after injury, and running in the heat and humidity. My name is Brad Nadauld. We've got the coach Lindsey Parry with us once again. Lindsey, Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year to everybody who's listening to the podcast as well. Did you have a good festive break?
Thanks, Brad. Happy New Year to you too, and everyone listening. I absolutely did. Love going down to the beach. Also got to spend some time with the in-laws from the UK, which we don't get to see very often. So very cool. Bit of bush time and rearing to go and ready for the year.
Yeah, and definitely South Africa in December is way better than December in the UK when it comes to beach bodies, that is for sure, and sunshine and barbecues, definitely the best time of the year to be in South Africa. But let's jump straight into our questions. And the first one comes from Zahir. Zahir saying, thanks for a wonderful show. Please help me understand the benefits of strength training. I didn't submit this question, Lindsey, just for the record. He says, in my marathon plan, there's one strength plan per week, and it's all body weight. I'm sure it's having an effect, but my motivation is not that strong to do it. Zahir, I feel you. I'm with you because it feels like it's so little. No, mine doesn't feel like so little. I just don't like doing it. He says, does a 30-minute session of different exercises impacts my running? And if so, what does it do? Lindsey, let's talk about the importance of strength training first of all, and then we'll talk about sort of body weight versus being in a gym and pushing heavy weights. But especially over 50, strength training is almost a non-negotiable, isn't it? Unfortunately.
So let's start right there. I mean, if we just start at the very basics of strength training, what does it do? Well, it's amazing for injury prevention by making our bodies more resilient to the impact forces of running. Then it has very good performance benefits in that it improves our ability to generate force. So as we get stronger, we can generate more force. You can generate more force, you can run faster. And then very importantly, it also helps our skeletal system to function more efficiently. So we move more efficiently, we use less energy when we move. And so the cost of exercise is decreased. And so we also get faster through improved efficiency. So really that's it in a nutshell. Makes us more resilient, can generate more power, and we become more efficient. All of those things add up to mean that we are better runners. Now, moving specifically to over 50 runners, why is it so important? Well, it's super important because literally as we get into our 30s, all the hard-earned strength that we've built up over the years and that our body has built up just by increasing testosterone over the years and maturation starts to disappear. We start to actually physically lose muscle mass, which then means that we're also physically losing strength. And that just accelerates when we're in our 50s and 60s. So if we don't do strength training, we are going to lose what we've got. The good news is that our bodies respond really well to strength training, right up and including our 8th and 9th generation, not generation, decade. I meant to say decade. So really, even when you have been around for a long time, strength training will have an impact straight away. We can reverse a lot of the lost strength that we've had over the years. And of course, what that means is that the earlier you start with strength training, the less you will lose, the slower you will lose it. And so that is why. So I think firstly, the answer to that question is yes, strength is very important. And the second thing is that you must do it. And the earlier you start doing it, the better.
Yeah, Lindsey, and obviously what type of strength training and the amount that you're doing is also important. So if you've never done strength training before, body weight exercises is more than enough to start with. You don't want to jump in the deep end and going squat racks in the gym. You don't need that. Initially, body weight is perfect. If you're coming to it having done strength before, or been doing strength, obviously the body weight stuff might feel a bit boring and doesn't feel like it's doing what it should be doing. And then he's talking about doing one a week. But in your experience, and what is the scientific literature saying about doing strength training from a frequency perspective?
Yeah, so the literature speaks about 3 times a week, and obviously that's problematic for a lot of people, to eke out the time to, now we're telling you must run 4 days a week and you must do strength training 3 days a week. That's 7 days a week. I don't have all the time to do that. So I try to look at it in two ways. The first one is this, is that ideal is 3 times a week, but 2 is better than 1, and 1 is better than doing no strength training at all. Okay. So if 1 a week is all you can get to, then do it, because it's better than not doing strength training. And then the second way to look at it is that we can look at our year and say that there are different times in the year where we can do a bit more strength and a little less running. So when we're in a general preparation phase, or when we've just come out of doing an event, for example, we can afford to run less and do a bit more strength training. So those are the two ways that you want to tackle it. And then to your point, Brad, around strength training, one of the big reasons why we use body weight is because we don't want a barrier to entry here. Okay. And because a lot of the people who come to us, that is one of the areas of neglect, is that they're not doing strength training. And so by starting with body weight exercises, we both make it easy. You don't have to go anywhere. Okay. So it's easy from a barrier to entry point of view. And secondly, it's enough. You can get a lot of resistance from your own body weight, particularly if you haven't been doing strength training. And then we will build it up from there. And as you said, if you've got more experience, if you're someone who has been doing strength training, then your strength program will look a lot different.
I got worried there that you were going to say, particularly if you have a lot of body weight, but I'm glad you said, particularly if you haven't done a lot of it. Thanks for clearing that up, Coach. Appreciate it. Zahid, thank you so much for that question. Don't forget, if you have a question you'd like to submit on the podcast as well, you can do it. It's pretty easy. The link is in the description of this podcast. It's also in the description of the YouTube video. You can click on it. We love video questions, so we do filter those to the top. So if you want to make sure you get your question answered on this podcast, make sure you leave us a video question. You can also leave it as an audio voice note, or you could type it up as Zahid did as well. Lindsey, on to the next question. This one came in from Sarah, and Sarah says, it usually takes me around 30 to 45 minutes to feel like I found my rhythm and for my heart rate to settle, even on easy runs. Once I'm settled, I can adjust my pace easily. Is there a way to shorten the time it takes to warm up and get a steady heart rate right from the start of a run?
So, Brad, it's quite unusual for heart rate to take that long to get up to steady state. Typically, that process of getting to steady state, depending on the intensity that you actually start at, will take between 3 and 5 minutes. Okay, so there's possibly some other things at play there, and where we do tend to see this kind of thing more than in others is in a very cold environment, where it's actually also difficult for the individual in question to actually increase their running pace to a comfortable running pace quickly, just because of both the temperature and how tight that makes them feel. And so it does take a long time to warm up. So that's the one aspect. And then the other aspect is the clothing. And often that is more an issue around accuracy of measurement and interference from the layers of clothing, rather than that being specific to the weather. Or if it's using risk-based heart rate, then often it's actually just the physical cold and the effect that the cold has on the unit itself. So what I would do is I would actually get onto a treadmill, or stationary bicycle, or something similar to that, where you're inside with as little interference as possible, and to try and figure out if that's like a genuine heart rate issue, or if it's a measurement issue, or if it is a temperature related issue, and how long it's taking you to get up to speed for your training sessions. because it's not normal. And with that amount of time that it's taking you to get up to that heart rate, your actual sessions themselves will become extremely long if we only start a session when you're actually warmed up and up to temperature, so to speak. So I would definitely get myself into an indoor setting where you can also manually take your heart rate so that you can actually see, is what I'm seeing on my watch actually what I'm receiving? And also just that real differentiation between chest heart rate strap and wrist, and the inaccuracies that you can get coming from a wrist.
Yeah, Lindsey, let's just touch on the inaccuracies. I mean, we've spoken about it lots on our main YouTube channel as well, just with regards to the difference between the wrist units and the chest straps, and the technology in those two are very different. So you're never going to get exactly the same readings across the two. For the most part, the wrist based are optical; it's light, whereas the chest strap is electrical impulse. What's the difference, and what's the gold standard? What should we be using?
Yeah, so the gold standard is definitely the chest, picking up the actual electrical impulses that are going from your AV node that sets the rhythm for your heart rate. So that's definitely going to be the one that's going to be more accurate. It's got a bigger surface area with the electrodes that are tracking that pulse. So also, just from that point of view, going to be much more accurate. And then you've got the wristwatch, which, as you said, uses light, or it's an optic sensor, and that's actually tracking the flow of the blood. And it's just way too easily impacted by the thickness of the skin, exactly where that optic sensor is sitting on your risk on your wrist in relation to where those blood vessels are. How loose is that optic sensor? Is light getting in? Because if you do get light in there, that's going to interfere with the accuracy of the reading. So definitely much more accurate to use chest strap. When the optic sensors are worn properly on a broadish wrist, then it tends to be accurate enough to use as a tool to guide us with intensity. But yeah, as soon as you use an actual chest strap, you'll see the difference. It is quite different.
Yeah, I have to laugh about the wrist strap. I use a wrist strap. I've got a chest strap, but I especially when I'm just going out like on long, easy runs and that sort of thing. Like I know what that feels like. And the health insurance company that I'm with give points for exercise. And if I'm out on the bike, it's so funny because I can go do like a 3-hour cycle, but because I wear my watch quite loose when I'm on the bike, they'll give me like the bare minimum, even though I was out for 3 hours. So like if I want the points that I actually deserve while I'm on the bike, I've got to tighten that wrist strap so tight that I almost lose circulation in my left hand in order to get the points. So I need to decide, do I want to be able to feel my left hand, or do I want the points? Because you can't have both, unfortunately. And that's pretty much the way I have to do it there. And great question, Sarah. Thank you so much for sending that through. Lindsey, next question in from James. James obviously lives in the Southern Hemisphere because it's quite cold in the north at the moment. He says, I haven't been able to train for the past week and my last 2 runs were cut short. At first, I thought it was just the heat and humidity, but now I'm not sure. I've been feeling really tired, swollen glands, leg cramps, and almost constant hunger. I'm arranging blood tests to figure out what's going on. It might be a low-level infection. He is saying he's not a doctor. He's just assuming that's what it might be. If everything comes back okay and I'm cleared up to train, how should I go about rebuilding my running with only 5 weeks left to my race that I'm training for? My long runs are behind schedule. What should I focus on? Do I need to play catch up? James is obviously stressing. He's got a race coming up. He's training for, not feeling great, and has missed a bit of training. What advice can you give James? If you're over 50 and want to recover from sessions faster, run pain and injury free, and improve your endurance, then be sure to join Lindsey and I for our upcoming Faster Beyond 50 Masterclass. In it, we'll show you how we helped a 70-year-old run a 47-minute, 18-second 10K, and how you can take those exact same principles and apply them in your training. Simply scan the QR code that's on screen right now, or click on the link in the description below to save your seat in the training now. We look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, so I think firstly, just listening to those symptoms, I would agree. I think that there is an infection. So that would be my instinct. So definitely get those blood tests done. The fact that your appetite is high it's a good sign. So that means it's unlikely to be overtraining or something linked to the training specifically. So yeah, we'll need to just get confirmation back from the doctor. Hopefully it's not viral. If it's viral, that will impact exactly how we get going again. But as soon as you're given the all clear, I would hop back into fairly normal training. I'd strip out the intensity, but get my volume back to pretty much where I was. In terms of the long runs, yeah, you're going to fall behind the plan, and you're going to build up from where you are now, around about 15 to 20%. And then 2 weeks before race day, you can afford to do a decent jump. So, we'll probably need to deal with this one through the forum, but we'll be able to work out like an actual biggest jump just to get enough volume that we can have some confidence for race day, but not so much volume that's either your actual race day just happens there and then, or you pick up an injury that prevents you from doing race day, and then we'll go into a taper so we can freshen you up for race day. But that's how I would manage the volume, assuming that it's not something serious or that the illness doesn't develop further and then it becomes obvious, where these things were coming from.
Yeah, Lindsey, and often people fall into the trap of wanting to play catch up. So they feel like they're better, so they try and catch that volume up, and that's the danger of doing that, is you just end up making yourself even more sick again. And it's just playing catch up is just not the right way to go about doing it.
No, you never want to play catch up because it just pushes you too much risk of picking up an overuse injury, and then that's it. Then it's all over, bar the shouting. And not too long ago, towards the end of last year, actually, around about, well, actually it was in the lead up to New York Marathon. So the result was towards the end of the year. But in the build up to New York Marathon, I had an athlete that had battled with a combination of illness or injury for the better part of 3 months before we started prepping for London Marathon. And the attitude there was, we're going to build up at exactly the rate that your body allows us to build up. So we're going to end up where we end up. And based on where we end up, we will decide how we are going to do New York. And actually just following that like step by step, and just letting the body tell us what it was ready for, what the next step was. My client ended up running a personal best for the marathon at New York. I mean, it's a tough, out of the majors anyway, it's a tough marathon. And that just goes to show you that if you just build on where you are, you take out the risk of re-injuring yourself, but you also optimize that improvement, and you can end up in a really strong position, and still get a decent result, even if you miss a big chunk of training and build up slowly.
Yeah, and Lindsey, sometimes it's your body also just under pressure that you are training and your immune system's low, and it's just almost like your body shouting out for a bit of recovery. So sometimes you bounce back better. So it's just not worth stressing about it, to be honest. Great question. Thank you so much for submitting that, James. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget, if you have a question you'd like to submit, the link is in the description and the show notes of this podcast and video. You can submit it. We do love the video ones. We filter those to the top. John submitted his question as well. John says, I've been running for over 13 years. I'm 65 years old now and currently training for a sub 150 half marathon. Don't you just love that, Lindsey? He says, I'm following a training plan. This coming Saturday, I have a tempo interval run scheduled. He says, I'm currently in Durban with the hot and humid weather here. Should I scale back and go on how it feels as opposed to going with the prescribed paces? And for anybody who doesn't know Durban, right, let me just explain. Durban in January, if you've ever watched Good Morning Vietnam with the late, great Robin Williams, where he talks about what it's like in Vietnam, hot, wet, and sticky would describe Durban this time of the year. Lindsey, what advice have you got for John?
Yeah, so look, the instincts are there, and this is really what I love about the forum, is that it's a great place to come in and check your thinking. And a lot of times, the people who are asking the questions are spot on, and then it's great to just give that positive confirmation. And if you went to do that session and forgot or tried to ignore the impact of that hot and humid environment that you're running in, you're just going to blow up, because your body needs to keep your body temperature below a certain point. Otherwise, you will run into physiological stress. And so effectively, your body and your brain are sharp enough and experienced enough at this that they will force you to downregulate. So you will feel terrible if you try to run it at the intensity from a pace point of view. But if you focused on what the idea behind that workout is, and the effort, or the RPE, the rating of perceived exertion, how difficult you feel the session is, and you pitch that at the right RPE, yes, the session is going to be a little bit slower, but from a physiological point of view, you're going to get exactly what you needed out of that workout. And if you nail it in those conditions, just from a feeling perspective, you also teach yourself how to run better on feel in a variety of conditions and in a variety of terrain. So that's the other area where this helps you. This is in response to a specific physiological, what's the word for stress, a specific physiological stress, but a very difficult course profile is a different kind of stress. And learning how to manage yourself in this hot environment will also teach you how to handle yourself better in very difficult, on a very difficult course. So instinct is right. RP is the right way to do it. Get through that session without blowing up and completely wrecking your confidence.
Yeah, Lindsey, it's quite interesting. I mean, obviously the heat and humidity do play a big part, and you talk about sort of feeling what that feels like. And just towards the end of last year, we did a masterclass with Coach Ntutu Letseka about pacing and how to get your pacing right in races. But it's in sessions like this where you learn how things feel, and often we get stuck on the number. This is the number we need to chase, and the same would apply for a hilly run as an example versus something on a flat surface. That because we get fixated on hitting a specific number, we end up pushing harder than what we should. And this is a great skill to learn. And I don't know if it's GPS watches that has almost beaten this out of us, but it's something that if you do get right, it makes a huge difference in your running.
It's almost the greatest tool to learn, like self-independence, to feel the intensity, particularly on race day, and to know what you're capable of holding in any given conditions or on any given day based on how I feel right now, is one of the greatest running strengths that you can have as an individual. And you're absolutely right. Going out and running on feel, and then comparing to what you perhaps were requested to do by a coach or on the platform, will go a long way to helping improve that. And it's one of the reasons why we use the time trial to assess fitness and improvement on the platform, because we try and encourage people to run those as fast as they can, with as little input from us as possible, so that they can learn from their mistake of going out too fast, going out too easy, being a little bit conservative. Because honestly, if you don't learn how that feels and how it should feel, you're always going to be at the mercy of someone else telling you how you should run. And you're always at risk of making a mistake early in races because you don't know what it should feel like. And that normally means that we err on the side of too hard. Very few people err on the side of too easy. And so we just risk blowing up in those races.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so you know, if you aren't a member of Team Coach Parry, Lindsey's talking about the platform and the forum. If you do decide you want to join us and you want to get help with your training, you get access to our entire training plan library, Fast to Be on 50 training framework, which are phenomenal. And on our all access packages, you also get access to our coaches forum, which allows you to chat to a coach if you'd like every single day. If you've got any questions, or if you want to just get some feedback on a session, just as John has, that is the best place to do it. And it's on an ongoing basis. The coach is in that forum every single day, so you're getting almost feedback almost immediately, which is absolutely amazing. And I'll pop the link to that in the description and the show notes as well of this podcast. And then Lindsey, great question in from Joanne. Joanne is training for a marathon. It's coming up in 4 weeks' time. Joanne says, I'm a bit worried about cramping. I've sorted out my nutrition, carb intake, liquids and gels, and I'm wondering if I should include salt tablets as well. If so, when would be the best time to take them during the run? I've been training in cooler winter climate, but where the marathon is, the weather could be 5 to 10 degrees warmer. If it's a warm day, I know I'm going to sweat more. Does that make salt tablets a good idea? I'd really appreciate your advice.
It's a really difficult question to answer, largely because we know that the biggest culprit for cramping is actually fatigue. So nutrition-based cramping accounts for less than 30% of incidents of cramping. So essentially, by messing with your electrolyte balance, you've only got a 1 in 3 chance of fixing the cramping, but you've got a 2 in 3 chance of actually making the problem worse. Okay, so that I think is quite an important thing to understand, is that cramping, if it's linked to electrolyte imbalance and in particular to sodium, can be from too little or too much. And so the only real way to know if you need to take in sodium is to actually go and do a test and to determine whether you are what we call a salt sweater. So you do get people who sweat profusely, but in particular, the salt makes up a much higher concentration of their sweat than other people. And those people tend to need some form of sodium supplementation. There are a lot of gels on the market that have got sodium in them already. There's a lot of electrolyte drinks on the market that have already got sodium in them. So for a start, it's going to get the test. If you know you've been training in a cooler climate, then we also know that you are going to struggle with your thermoregulation. So you are going to probably sweat more than you normally would. And so you probably do need to increase your fluid intake slightly. And I would look at a very basic electrolyte replacement, something that's got a general electrolyte replacement that you're unlikely to overdo that replacement. Knowing that you're going into an environment that's probably going to make you sweat a little bit more, it's probably going to drive up the fatigue a little bit more, and knowing that cramping is largely caused by fatigue, then we know in that hot, humid environment, we're going to be more fatigued anyway. So one way of doing it is also to up the ante on the strength training and really get yourself stronger and better prepare your muscles to withstand that additional layer of fatigue that's going to creep in because of the heat and the humidity. And then finally, a really good response to the increased heat and humidity is having tools that will help you keep your body temperature down. So at water points, put ice underneath your cap so that the ice can melt, and that cool ice can both cool down your forehead as well as the rest of your body. Drink really cold fluids while you're going around the course. There are a couple of garments that you can get, like ice necklace, or you get really good moisture wicking materials, and some materials that actually have a chemical reaction when you sweat and actually physically cool down. And so that chemical reaction will then help to cool the skin. You cool the skin, that then in turn will cool the blood that's coming past the skin. That'll help to keep your body temperature down, and it'll reduce the amount that you sweat. So those are kind of the 3 layers that I would work through in order to give yourself the best chance of not cramping on race day.
But
So one last one, actually, Brad. So
yep.
I did think of another one, sorry, and that is that on race day, knowing that it's going to be much warmer than you used to, knowing that it's going to be more humid than you used to, that means you need to readjust your target. You're not going to be capable of running the same time in that marathon as you would in your home country. And so readjust that goal and do walk breaks. So plan in walk breaks. Plan it as if it's going to be a much harder marathon, and those walk breaks and that reduced intensity will also go a long way to reducing the chances of you cramping.
And we always joke that, man, if we could come up with the cure for cramping, we'd be gazillionaires, because Yeah, it is. It is a problem that a lot of people suffer with, and unfortunately, the jury is out. There's no real definitive answer to how to prevent them.
100%, and there are products on the market that are worth trying. So the thing with these products, and you know me, Brad, I'm a big advocate of nothing new on race day. But I'm also realistic to know that if you start cramping,
all bets off.
Plan A has gone out the window, so you might as well try something. And I actually last year at Cape Town Marathon, I was going to try a new Australian product. Its name escapes me now, but it's basically pickle juice. It's packaged pickle juice, and I had it with me, and I didn't need it at all during the race. But when I went back out on the route to support the other runners, there was a guy that basically couldn't go backwards or forwards, and I brought him this thing and gave it to him, and he was like, looks at me and said, "Nothing new on race day." And I said, "Mate, it's too late for that. This is either going to work or it's not going to work, but you can stand here or you can try this." And he tried it, and he then hobbled off, and he finished the race. But yeah, so there are some products, capsicum, pickle juice, these kind of things that you can try out and keep them in your back pocket, because if you cramp, as Brad said, all bets off. You might as well try them.
Yeah, absolutely. Lindsey, as always, I love doing these podcasts. Don't forget, if you have a question you'd like to submit to be answered on an upcoming episode of the Faster Beyond 50 podcast, you can do so. The link is in the description of this podcast or of the video on YouTube. And just click on that link. We do filter the video questions to the top. We love the video questions. It does make it a little bit more engaging hearing you as well. So the voice notes work quite well too. Or if all else fails, you can submit a written question. But if you do want to jump the queue, the video is the way to go. Lindsey, as always, thank you for your time today. Much appreciated. We look forward to catching up again next week.
Fabulous. It's been great. Awesome start to the year, and looking forward to the next one already.